Today we're going to cover the USX Community Edition. Now this is a quick 30-minute preview where we're just going to pretty much show you a demo. Ruben's going to show you a great demo on how it's deployed and what it looks like. I'll cover some of the, the great stuff that we support with the Community Edition. And we also have Jim on the call as well, Jim Moyle. He helped, actually he developed the Community Edition installer. And we're going to be showing to you some of that today as well. So I'm the technical marketing architect, and Ruben's the field CTO. We'll be talking about some of the major advantages of using the Community Edition along the lines of what it looks like, how it's deployed, and what you can use it for. All right. Jim's in the background to cover any questions you have and share his expertise, of course. So say a quick round of hellos, Ruben.
Hey, of course. It's a pleasure to be here, and looking forward to this session. Great to share insights around USX CE.
Yeah, thanks. Jim, are you there? Say a quick hello.
Yep, I'm here. Hello. There's a few familiar names to me in the attendees list, so hello to some of those.
Awesome. All right, so let's get started. So pretty much the Community Edition is based on our fully fledged USX software-defined storage engine. What it is it's pretty much, you get the actual USX software as part of the Community Edition. The only limitations is that you are only entitled to consume 100 gig of the storage capacity. And by default, the Community Edition deploys a simple hybrid volume. We chose a simple hybrid volume type to keep the requirements down. Now, you need a minimum of 32 gig of RAM in your server, and that server can either run a VMware hypervisor or Citrix Zen server hypervisor. Now, the Community Edition will deploy by default, a small volume size that consumes as quite a low number of RAM initially. However, once it's deployed, you can actually change that. So you can actually delete that volume and then configure different types of volumes. For example, simple all-flash. If you have SSDs in your lab environment as well, then of course you can configure different volume types if you wish. But the only thing is you can't go above the 100 gig license that you get from the Community Edition. All right. So it's as simple as that. And with that, let's take you through the installation, and Ruben will take you through that, and we'll come back to the presentation shortly. Thanks, Ruben. Take it away.
I will switch over to a client machine, not this slide. Client machine. Let's see this one. So this is my this is a Windows 10 client machine. Actually, this VM is running on Hyper-V, but that's just a side note. This is one half of my home lab. There are 4 Intel NUCs with 32 gigs of RAM. In this home lab, there is a server called Zen Server 05 with an NVIDIA M60 GPU in it. I will use this machine, this physical machine, to deploy the USX Community Edition. When we deliver the Community Edition, we'll get an executable like this. There will be 2 executables, one for Zen Server and one for vSphere. With that executable, the package of OVF and XVA will be part of the installer. There's also an option to use an XML file, and I'll just open this XML file. With this XML file, you can add some specific options like this one. The size is small, so small means 60 gigabytes, 60 gigabytes. Simple hybrid volume which is deployed. When I remove this line, a 100 gigabyte simple hybrid volume will be deployed. So right now I will use this XML file. I already typed in the IP addresses, username, passwords, these kind of things for my demo, and I will use the XML file with the executable itself. So this is the actual executable. minus XML and then the path to the actual XML file. So we'll start the installer. But before I start the installer, you clearly see there is no USX volume, like no storage volume here. There are no USX managers or USX volumes here. You will see during the installation process, which takes around 8 minutes in total, that in USX manager, USX volume, and the actual volume will be part of the storage repository in XenServer. For this demo, I use XenServer. I could use my other set of lab environment gear as well for the vSphere demo, but for now, I use XenServer. I double click on the installer. Welcome. Accept the EULA. Next. There are some requirements here. PowerShell is being used as a core component. Everything we do from a management perspective is based on REST API, and we created an awesome PowerShell module which is able to talk to the REST API. So PowerShell is needed, .NET version is needed, and the XenServer SDK is also important. And I already installed that to save some time, but it's just next finished SDK installed. You can clearly see that this is automatically populated because of the XML file, as I shared earlier. PowerShell module is loaded, connected to the pool master, in this case XenServer 05.demo.local is being up. This is simple, this is just one machine. If I use my 4 NUCs with a different pool master, you'll see the 4 NUCs of course, but I'll use this machine. Minimum hardware requirements, will address that. From a CPU perspective, 2 gigahertz or more, 32 gigs of RAM or more, also depending on what kind of simple hybrid volume you want to deploy. Running it on local storage. 180 gig is needed here. This is already populated, so my USX manager IP addresses are here using this simple network. My volume VM or volume virtual machine will have this set of IP addresses. When I click next, I will see a summary. So the USX manager will be installed on XenServer 05 using local storage. This is the network attached to XenServer 05 with the IP addresses I filled in. This is the volume VM network, and when I click install, it will actually copy first of all the XVA from this client machine. So that's a network copy to the actual XenServer 05. So we see throughput here. You see as well that the USX 3.5.0, this is the actual USX manager, is being deployed. 5:11 my time, around 5:21 for sure it will be finished, and normally it takes like 7-8 minutes in my setup. It can be faster. I've seen faster setup when I use different hardware as well, but this machine will finalize it in around 8 minutes. So of course we can wait 8 minutes, and we will wait 8 minutes, but let's see if we can go back to the presentation. We'll go back to this setup later when the installation is finished. So as I addressed earlier, these are the system requirements. I'm using a Windows client, Windows 10 in this setup. I already deployed the PowerShell modules for XenServer. If I do a deployment on vSphere, it is Power CLI is needed for that. We support XenServer 6.5 and 7.0 with XenCenter, vSphere 5.5 and 6.0. As I mentioned earlier, host requirements, 32 gigs of RAM or more if you deploy the larger volume, 100 gig simple hybrid. With simple hybrids, we need RAM to really boost the performance from the spinning drive. 2 IP addresses, set the host to high performance like the normal VDI best practices. In the XML file, as you've seen, you saw that there was an option for small. Small is 60 gigabyte raw capacity. You can still fit in maybe like 10, 20 Windows 10, Windows 7 VMs or maybe more, because the dedup ratio will be high in these kind of setups. So don't be surprised, even with a 60 gigabit volume, that gigabyte volume, that you will get a lot of VMs inside that volume. So Hugo, maybe you can jump in and share some other insights about C.
Great, thank you. So some of the CE benefits that we've designed into the Community Edition is pretty much we've changed the EULA. So obviously it's a Community Edition, therefore it doesn't require the same level of end user license agreement with the full production product that we have. So it's a very cut down EULA. Of course, you shouldn't really use this for production. We say that, but even when we had our Aurelio free trial, we saw that people would use that in production too. So don't do that unless you really know what you're doing and you don't require support from Atlantis. But we don't recommend you doing that anyway. So it comes with a 1-year not for resale license. You can basically you obtain the licensing by the usual method that you do today if you're a current customer. I'll explain that in a later slide. And of course, as I said before, it's restricted to only 100 gigs of what we call presented capacity. Ruben mentioned the level of data reduction that you could obtain from 100 gigs could be up to 750 gigs, right? If we compress and reduce by 75%, for example. The other great benefits is, you see how easy it is to deploy the Community Edition. It pretty much saves you a lot of time, 8 minutes end to end from when you click on the signed executable to start the installation process to the point where your volume is available in your hypervisor and it's mounted, and then you can now create a virtual machine or a copy of virtual machine into that NFS storage. It then also allows you to quickly demo and test, to your managers, to your colleagues, and so on, to show the great benefits of the Atlantis USX, inline data reduction, the fast clone capabilities, and so on. And we've also reduced the requirements from the normal USX product down for the Atlantis Community Edition. So you only need one, vSphere hypervisor or Zen-server hypervisor today. And of course, reduce memory and disk requirements and SSD as well. Now, if you have more RAM and more SSDs, then of course go ahead and increase the volume sizes or decrease multiple volumes. But of course, you also have to consider that 100 gig license limit for the Community Edition. The installation is really fast and simple, as you saw. The other thing I want to highlight here is that the support is community supported. What that means is you get guys like Jim, Moyle, myself, Ruben, and other members of our Atlantis community, which we have around, was it 50 or 60 now, Ruben? Quite a few. Yeah. To support you if you need any assistance. And you can reach out to us on community.atlantiscomputing.com. And that's also where you submit a forum request for support or just basically talk about the Community Edition as well. So let's talk about what is not supported in the Community Edition. Firstly, you can't just upgrade the Community Edition to the fully fledged Atlantis USX product. There are a number of reasons for this. Primarily, it's installed very, very easy, as you saw, okay? And we've reduced the requirements quite a lot. So it's not as case as simple as just, buying a fully functional production license from Atlantis and then applying that into the Community Edition. Because we need to make sure that, if you're running workloads in production, that it's being set up appropriately by Atlantis or by a partner, or that it's been designed as required. So we're not making that step as part of the upgrade process. The other reasons why we're not doing this is because of the different EULA and of course the support model. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So let's go back to some questions that frequently asked questions that normally come up.
There are also, Hugo, there are a lot of questions in the questions and answers window, so that's really great to see. Jim and I are typing like crazy to answer these questions. Some of these questions are also part of this slide, frequently asked questions slide, so just go ahead.
Okay. All right, I'll cover the frequently FAQ questions, and then you guys can repeat the question and then answer it as well in this section. Okay. So it's going to be available early November, and pretty much as you see, right? So as you see, the installation that Ruben did, that is pretty much what it looks like, and the actual final state of the Community Edition. Another great question that we had previously in a different webinar was, can a user delete the hybrid volume and deploy the volume type? Yes, of course. The hybrid volume was chosen by default because of the decreased requirements. However, you can of course, after installation of the Community Edition, delete that hybrid volume and then create simple memory volumes or simple all-flash volumes if you had SSD, for example. You can also, of course, deploy multiple volumes of smaller sizes. All right, so you can, instead of creating one large 100 gig or 60 gig volume, you could create two 50 gig or 30 gig volumes, as an example. Okay. How will it be delivered? So it's a digitally signed executable, downloadable from the community portal. There are separate installers for Zen Server and vSphere. Also, does it support vVols? Yes, it does. So, the actual USX distributable within the Community Edition download is a full USX. It contains the full USX software. So you can do whatever that USX can do. So yes, you can enable VMware virtual volumes in the simple hybrid, simple memory, or simple flash volume, and then try out VMware vVols. So set up a storage policy and so on. Can you mount to other machines? Yes, you can. So it's basically an NFS export by default. You can of course delete that default volume and create a different one, and then present it over iSCSI if you wish. The only restriction is that you can do everything that USX can do. However, there's a 100 gig license restriction enforced by the EULA, and that's pretty much the only limitation that we've made for this. So, what are the other questions that we have, Ruben? If you want to just cover those.
Yeah, I'm just finalizing one, typing one other answer. Let's see, just from top. About sound quality, I think that's fixed because right now it's loud and clear. That's a good thing. What kind of controller and drivers are being supported? That's being answered as well, but in essence, to highlight that for people who watch the recording later, everything what is visible and up and running in Zen Server or vSphere is usable for us. We run as a VSA on top of Zen Server or vSphere, and therefore we can use local storage, spinning drive, SSD, we can use network attached storage, we can use SAN, and with USX. In the Community Edition context, we need local storage. We need around 200 gigs, a little bit less, but around 200 gigs of local storage, which can be SSD or spinning drive. Suppose you delete the normal volume from 100 gig and you create new volumes. Yeah, you have the ability to do whatever you would like to do with the Community Edition from a technology perspective. So you can create a couple of smaller volumes, or maybe use different types of media if you would like. There's no technical limitation on that side. So what kind of controllers and drives? Simply said, I don't care that much. We don't care from that perspective. Is a volume presented to the hypervisor as NFS or iSCSI? The CE installer and the volume will be populated as NFS. Again, if you create manually a new volume, you can choose between NFS or iSCSI. Although the majority of people use NFS in the field, you can create a volume with iSCSI as well. And there's more to come on that side as well. Other question, any way to deploy in Hyper-V or cloud? Not yet was my answer, so stay tuned. If you use 6 gigabyte drives or gigabytes per second drives, controller with cache, or a mix, just wondering if you're going to test the volume what I'm looking at. It's not sure if it's a question. But as I mentioned earlier, what kind of drives, what kind of controllers, all works. If it works on vSphere and XenServer, we can benefit from that. We can leverage that. Daryl, if you would like to contact me, or maybe Hugo, you have my details at the end, so we can have a conversation what you want to achieve. But it is a full technology version of USX, so all the things you mentioned are possible. That's what we do on a daily basis as well. So, not well. I'm sure that it will be doable to get it up and running. Another question: when it will be available? Already covered. Early November. Will the slides be available? The recording is the session is being recorded, so that is made available. If you want to have the deck or maybe a PDF of the deck, send me or Hugo an email as well. These are the questions for now. Let's go back to the environment, see how it's progressed, see if it works well. And the copy process finished, so that's a good sign. There's the CE manager. That's the actual USX manager. I will log into the manager. This is the volume VM. When I look at storage, you see that I deployed a 100 gig volume VM. That's the normal. Size. I can make smaller volume VMs as well. You can also see that the volume VM is mounted as a storage repository in the storage repository in XenServer as a 100 gig volume. So suppose I deploy a template or create a new VM, I just select. Let's do that as an example. Let's see. I don't see it yet. Double check if it's mounted well enough. This is a good sign to go to the USX manager anyway. You'll see after the installer that you're able to use the USX manager console. So click finish. Admin power user is the default password. So this is the straightforward console. 100 gig volume. If we add VMs, if we add data to that, you will see that dedip and compression will kick in, as Hugo mentioned. It's handy. You can like mount, unmount. It's already mounted, so that should be fine. When I look at the, this one is handy as well. When you start the document center, like a pre-deployment checklist, deployment guides. These are handy to read. Right now I'm finalizing a sort of tester's guide as well. So when we launch the USX CE edition, you will get access to that as well. Suppose when I click on manage volumes, suppose I delete this volume, which I will not do right now, but suppose I delete this volume, you're able to create new volumes as mentioned earlier, and you can create. Don't have the resources yet, but you can create, for instance, like a simple all-flash, and set up an all-flash volume if you would like to do that. Again, the license limit is 100 gig capacity, but if you delete this volume, or you create a small volume for 60 gig, and you still have like 40 gigs of volume size left to make it happen. Yeah, then you can go to like set up these environments, these settings to make it happen. You can go to analytics, monitoring, these type of things to see how the environment is up and running. Double check if I missed something. Oh yeah, but it's handy as well if you get access to the USX CE edition. The default is an evaluation license for 1 terabyte, but expires soon. And you will get it in the same email. You'll get a license code, and you need to activate a license code, which will be like something like this. You add the key, which is part of that email, and you're up and running. And that will last for a year. So we'll have ability to play around, to test, to use USX CE for a year, which is a good thing as well. Anything special, Hugo, I missed? Pretty straightforward, that's the whole point.
Yeah, very straightforward. So as you notice here, that's the full USX manager that you see when you actually buy the product. So there's nothing restricted there. And the online documentation is very, very detailed. We have, deployment guides and great documents that our documentation team have spent a lot of time writing. So I recommend you go there and have a look at that, and you'll see, how to create different volume types and what they're used for. So all flash if you have SSD, for example. And within that, you can see the analytics, the monitoring as well. And those graphs and charts and so on are really useful for you to monitor your environment if you're running tests on this. So if you have login VSI or IM meter or any other type of benchmarking or testing tool, then run it against even the simple hybrid or the simple flash volume, and you'll see the great performance that USX provides.
It's also good to mention, Hugo, if you do some tests and performance tests before you publish results, to inform us about these results. It's good to know what will be published, maybe good to share best practices, these type of things. So before you publish results, make sure that you reach out to Hugo or Jim or me as an example. One of the other questions around source code is Community Edition. While the USX code is not open source, we had some internal conversations about making the PowerShell, which is being used as the installer, open, so that we just share the PowerShell. That's being considered right now. I don't think there's a real secret in that, because everything is what we do is using REST API. It's also a great learning experience for the community and knowledge sharing with the community to share, well, how do you fully automatically deploy USX, manager, volumes, all these type of things. And that's being done in the GUI by the installer. So yeah, we have that conversation internal. We'll finalize that conversation before we have the actual CE edition available. Let's go back to the actual slides. Want to kick in, Hugo, on this one?
Yeah. Yeah, just to extend on what Ruben said. So again, there's nothing restricted in USX Manager or USX. So the ability to use the great Power CLI commandlets that Remco has built is one way that you can try out the product, right? So you can use PowerShell to fully deploy USX and then all the volumes and monitor and everything as well. There's also the Python plugin framework that we've built as well, so you can try that. Of course, you can use the REST API as part of the product, and if not, just go to the user interface and do everything there. So it's pretty much wide open, and we haven't restricted any of those facilities.
Would be a good topic as well for TechJam, maybe in the future, to talk about like whole automation. Maybe invite Jim or Remco or both to talk about automation. Probably a smaller audience, but it's really powerful and differentiates us compared to others in this space.
Yeah, definitely. So how to get it then? So the page I don't believe is up yet. Community.atlantiscomputing.com is obviously up, but you can go there and register for an account. We'll have a tile, so one of those square areas is a tile. What we'll have there is the download Community Edition here, or click here to grab your Community Edition. That will be available in November. When that is available, you'll then be able to click on that, fill in a quick form, accept a user, and then what you then get is a link for the Community Edition. And then you also get a couple of emails from us saying, welcome to that Community Edition, here is your license key, and go here for the documentation, click here to contact the one of the community members for help, and so on and so forth. So look out for that in early November. Also, we'll publish some additional tech jams, as Ruben mentioned, for the automation tech jam, for example, and hopefully you'll have your Community Edition installed by then, so that we can we can take you through that. Anything else? Any more questions, Ruben, before we finish?
Yeah, just Jim answered the question. Does it need SSD drive or can we use spinning drive? If it needs SSD, can I use a SAN-based LUN for a flash array?
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes, yes. Does it need a SSD drive? No, not need. Like a simple hybrid can run on a spinning drive. Like early this morning I did 3 installations on a spinning drive. That's fine. We use RAM to, for our delineation and compression technology, and make it a fast as possible solution. If you want to use SSD, that's fine as well, also with a simple hybrid. But you can also deploy it on SSD and then remove the simple hybrid volume and then just deploy a simple all flash as an example. That's also an option. And the other comment was, can we use a SAN-based array? Yes, the installer will detect what kind of storage you have connected to that array, and you can use that platform as well to deploy the Community Edition. So
yeah.
That's one question. Let's see. That's the question.
We actually have a slide in this deck showing the RAM requirements for different types of volumes. So we won't share it here, but we'll include it in the slide distribution, so you can have a look if you have less than 32 RAM.
I can put it up if you would like to do that, so you go, or just keep it what it is right now. Whatever you
No, it's okay. Yeah, just conscious of the time, that's all. So yeah, you can. I mean, if you have SSD, then of course you're going to need less RAM in the hypervisor for the volumes. So if you do have SSDs or you want to use an all-flash array as the backing storage, then of course you can deploy that type of volume and consume less RAM. So we just use that RAM as a performance tier, for example.
I can just highlight that,
SSD.
Hugo, if you would like. I just have it on a different machine. So when it's a simple hybrid volume, 60 gigabytes will consume 25 gigs of RAM. And if you're using a 100 gig simple all-flash volume, the same volume, that's the volume VM will use 9 gigs of RAM. And when you create a 200 gig simple all-flash volume, it will consume 12 gigabytes of RAM. So I run like 4 Intel NUCs in my home lab and a couple of other servers. So I'm happy to run this in my NUC as well. My NUCs have 32 gigs of RAM, so I can use simple all-flash easily with these NUCs, which is a great option in your home environment as well. Okay, let's see. Jim, do we have other questions? I don't think so, right? Hugo, double checking.
So there's just one last comment on the restrictions. Currently the installer doesn't support vSphere distributed switches. I'm wondering if somebody could type into the questions if that's a big deal for people, if distributed switches is something that you think is absolutely necessary for a Community Edition, or whether you think that Community Edition could just rely on the normal vSphere networking.
Yeah, good question and good feedback as well.
I think there's a question, how much RAM does this consume on a host? As Ruben mentioned earlier, if you want the full entitlement of 100 gig, it consumes about 43 gigs of RAM. So obviously a 64 gig server would be best for that. Now we're aware that not everybody has a 64 gig server in their lab. So as part of the XML switch input to the EXE, you can specify a small or a tiny volume, and effectively that will fit very easily for the tiny volume on a 32 gig plus room for VMs, and the small will fit exactly on a 32 gig host, and that will give you about a 60 gig volume.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. I don't think there are any more questions, guys.
No, just a thumbs up. Thanks for the presentation. Looking forward to the download. These kind of things are part of the feedback, so that's good.
Great.
I think we're good, Hugo.
All right. So yeah, I think the distribution switch, you can actually, if you don't have it, the the Community Edition installer doesn't support the distributed switch. Jim mentioned that we could work on that. However, the once you've deployed it and if you want to use a distributed switch, remember that USX is a fully functional product when it's installed. So you can then create a different network group policy within USX and then use that for future different volumes as well. So that's fine if you wish to do that. So I want to just say thank you very much for your time and attending our TechJam today. If you need to reach out to us, my email and Ruben's is there, and Jim is just a straightforward jim@atlantiscomputing.com. Please register on community.atlantiscomputing.com and look out for the tweets and also the page on community.atlantiscomputing.com. Jeez, I can't speak this morning. To download the Community Edition in early November. With that, thanks very much. Have a good day.
Awesome. Have a great day, guys.